And then the very light color is Kenya itself. And my journey was in between the red lines. So we started off in Nairobi and went all the way around to various locations. The flag of Kenya is very important for the representation. The white for peace, black for people of Kenya, red for the blood when they were struggling for their freedom, green for the natural wealth which they consider their land, and the Maasai shield and spears which represents their defense of their freedom. Some quick interesting facts. Kenya is 580,000 square kilometers. It will fit into BC 1.5 times. Population of over 54,000. The capital is Nairobi with a population of 4.7 million. Greater Vancouver is 2.5 million. There's 2 official languages recognized, Swahili and English, but there's actually more than 69 different spoken languages in Kenya. It is considered the home of the big 5, elephant, lion, Cape buffalo, leopard, and rhino. So the journey begins, and I've shared with you the lodges that we stayed at simply because they were stunning. So this is the Southern Sun Mayfair Hotel in Nairobi, and we would enjoy breakfast and dinner overlooking the swimming pool at this beautiful lodge. This was our transportation for our 12 nights. The Jeeps, we stayed with the same driver. Each Jeep is built for 8 passengers plus 1 driver. We were lucky enough that we had 5 Jeeps, only 25 people in our group from Canada. So we only had 5 people plus the driver. Everybody got a window seat. So it's kind of got a row of seats on the one side with a gap in the middle and a row of seats on the other window. So we had great vision the whole time. When we're on the move, they would always have the roof of the Jeep open. So our driver was Sam. He's been doing this for many years and very, very knowledgeable man. So we set out on the first morning, and I just love this picture as we're driving in the Jeep. This is how they do a lot of their deliveries. It was stacked with fruit and vegetables, and off they go. So our first visit was to the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. The project is actually right in Nairobi, but they do have property, so they have lots of room for the young elephants. We were met by this warthog. Luckily, he was behind a fence. He was huge. He was about the size of a small pony. He doesn't look that big, but he was huge. Everywhere we went, we were always greeted by at least one Maasai person. It seems to be the tradition that you do have a greeting. And this is feeding time. They come down by age group from their areas out here, and they're hand fed by the keepers. We were so close, in fact, and you'll see from the next picture, this is my husband's hand on one of the elephants. The trust is best known for their work to protect elephants. The trust operates the most successful orphan elephant rescue and rehabilitation program in the world. The wife of the founder, Daphne Sheldrick, unfortunately passed away about a month before we got there. This is a beautiful story. This African love story is her story of her life growing up in Africa, and her story of her raising her family and the different game reserves that she lived on during that time. You can adopt. So we adopt Enkesha. Enkesha, unfortunately, was caught in a snare, and it's quite common, not that they're trying to reduce the amount of poaching, but they do use these snares. And it would have been one of these snares that had caught this little calf. And when she struggled, of course, it tightened and she almost lost the end of her trunk. You can see now, though, this is the injury, how they managed to save the trunk. And as I say, at the time, she was only 11 months old. She's improved so well now that they figure that she will be able to go out back and enjoy a life in the wild. So off we go. From Nairobi, we went to Mount Kenya. This is the lodge, this is the entrance, and this is what it looks like. Of course, I didn't take this picture, but just to give you an idea, the lodge here with the rooms all facing this beautiful watering hole, so the views are incredible. Just a little bit of information. This Mount Kenya Lodge has several lodges within the property. One of them is called Treetops. And it was there that Princess Elizabeth was visiting when she was unfortunately informed of the passing of her dad. So she became officially the queen while staying at the Mountain Lodge. It's 7,200 feet above sea level on the slopes of Mount Kenya. And you can request before you go to bed at night. They have someone watching the watering hole 24/7. And if you list the animals you'd really like to see, they'll come and knock at your door, wake you up, and you can go out on your balcony. So this is our room. Each room has a balcony facing the water hole, and talk about a room with a view. So I took these pictures from our balcony. These are some Cape buffalo. These are water bucks. It seemed to be a resident group, and at night they go into these bushes, and that's where they seem to spend their evenings. A little later on, of course, this is in the nighttime, we could hear these loud noises. And anyway, this elephant showed up, didn't like the fact that the buffalo were there drinking water, and was charging the buffalo. So him and his pal could come and get a drink at the watering hole. So we spent one night there, and then we're on our way to the next game reserve. This is Mount Kenya. It is the second tallest peak in Africa at over 17,000 feet. Just to compare, Grouse Mountain is at about 4,000 feet. The tallest mountain in Africa is Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, which is over 19,000 feet. Mount Kenya is considered a holy mountain, and it's used therefore for traditional rituals. The Samburu National Reserve got its name from a huge volcanic cone that dominates the region. This area is famous for the association with Kenya's most renowned conservationists, George and Joy Amundsen, and their lioness Elsa. If you ever watched the movie Born Free, it's based on their lives. So this was our home for a couple more nights, the Samburu Simba Lodge, and it's on the Ewaso Nairu River. So this is our room, our balcony. This is views overlooking the reserve towards the river. And as soon as you step foot, you can see this little guy here is a vervet monkey. As soon as they hear those doors open, they are there. And you have to make sure you close the door because they love nothing better than going in your room and helping you unpack. This is a blue-shanked Somali ostrich. This is a Grevy's zebra. I'll go over later. There's two different kinds of zebras found in Kenya. This is the rarer of the two. It's the bigger of the two, but I have a side-by-side picture later that you can see the difference. Of course, there's always herds of elephants. This is one of my favorite pictures. They lined up. You couldn't have asked for a better shot where you can see the juveniles and the babies. And this is a female. They're always led by the most senior female in the group. Now, this guy is actually an antelope. He's called a Gerenuk. And what is unique about the Gerenuk is he does not feed, he doesn't graze on the ground. He only feeds when he's on his hind legs, and he feeds in the trees. You can see how long his neck is. So he's quite often referred to as the giraffe antelope because of this long neck. This guy here, and as I say, some of the pictures we couldn't get as close as I would have liked, and even my Zoom sometimes didn't help me out. But anyway, this is a rare called a Bisa oryx. Another group of elephants. This group was so playful with the water. You can see the elephant has it in its trunk, some trunk here. And this one here was rolling in the mud like a little kid. It was just lovely to see. We sat there actually in our Jeeps for quite a while, just watching them be so playful. This is a reticulated giraffe, one of 3 different kinds of giraffes found in Kenya. Again, I have a side-by-side picture later so you can see the difference in the 3 types of giraffes. At the lodge at night, they call you up to watch. This is an old crocodile that likes to come to the watering hole that's just back here of the property. And his head is slightly tilted, and they've just fed him some raw chicken. And of course, you can't quite see it, but there is an electric fence here. The guys were quite safe when they went down. There had been a little rain overnight, so when we left the camp to go out on a game drive, we had to ford across this river a little bit. We're driving along. Suddenly, the couple of jeeps in front of us came to a standstill, and we realized this group of olive baboons had decided they were on the right side of the road, and they wanted to go to the left side. So, of course, the animals get preference. So we had to wait, and there must have been close to 100 of these baboons in this group. Males, females, juveniles, and there's a little baby right back here. And they were just so interesting to see them. Of course, another elephant. This is a big bull elephant. Just gorgeous creatures, one of my favorites. These little guys, they're hard to see because they're well camouflaged. And they need to be. These are called dik-diks. They are a small antelope, and they are only about 18 inches high, in total, from their ears to the feet. But as I say, they're tiny, but they move fast, but they are well covered by the growth around them. This is a secretary bird. I could have watched this bird for days. They are in the trees, they're on the ground. When they swoop in and they land, they walk like they're on high heels. It's quite an amazing. I wish I had video of them walking because it literally looks like they're wearing high heels. This is a, I got that. Oh, a Grant's gazelle. Sorry, I lost my place in my notes. These are Grant's gazelles. And you'll hear about Thompson gazelles and Grant gazelles and different ones. And our driver, Sam, was really good at trying to help us identify the various animals by certain markings. He would tell us about the underbelly, the rump, or something that we could help to identify. We did do an official crossing of the equator. They do a little ceremony. And then this gentleman here did a demonstration. He filled a bucket with water, and he stood on the north side of the equator, and he drained the bucket, and there was a toothpick in it. And as you watch the toothpick, it went clockwise. He then stepped to the south side of the equator, filled the bucket, put the toothpick back in, and this time it drained counterclockwise. And when he stands on the equator, it drains straight down. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't really expecting that, but it does honestly drain straight down. On to our next camp, the Sweetwaters Serena camp. And we were actually in tents, so I'm calling this glamping. They've built the tents on platforms, and they do have some brick coverage over the top. And inside, they do have showers, running water, and flushing toilets. So that's hence the glamping. When they told us we were going to stay in tents, I wasn't really convinced that that would be a good idea. But the interesting thing about this camp is that our rooms were down here on the left side of this picture overlooking a watering hole. And it was amazing to see some of the animals that came by. So this group of giraffes, herd of giraffes came by. And you can see how they have to spread their legs, their front legs apart in order to get their long necks down to get a drink. And they are really quite susceptible at this point if there would to be a predator would come along. This is another elephant. If you can see here, his right tusk is a little bit bigger than his left. I didn't know, but elephants are considered left-handed or right-handed. And you can tell by this, the trunk will be more developed or larger, usually on one side more than the other. And so they say they're either left-handed or right-handed. Beautiful poinsettia bushes, pretty much everywhere we went in Kenya. Lovely. This was a black rhino, I believe. I've forgotten how you identify. There is a way with their horns. This is a female and a baby in the background, and this was the dad. There is a ditch between us and them, so we were quite safe at all times. And this not so handsome guy is a marabou stork. They're quite large. He probably stood about, I want to say, 1 meter high maybe. Very, very cheeky. You don't want to give them an inch because they take a mile. And when we were eating breakfast one morning, two kids decided it would be fun to feed him. Well, then he wouldn't go away. He was trying to find a way inside to the dining room the whole time because he wanted more food. While we were on the old Pejeta Conservancy, we went to visit this guy. His name is Baraka. Baraka is unfortunately blind in one eye, and he has cataracts on his other eye. And due to circumstances, they are unable to operate on him. So because of his poor vision, they do have an enclosure, which is huge, by the way. And there is some fencing because he will never be able to go out in the wild because, of course, he wouldn't do very well with no vision. They do have a platform, and my husband had just given him some lettuce leaves, I believe. But he knows where to come and get the food. I guess his sense of smell is still pretty good. And then again, in the old Pejeta Conservancy and the game reserve, we went out. Sometimes we went mostly 2 times a day, sometimes 3 times a day out on these game drives, as they call them. This is a Cape buffalo, one of the toughest animals, most dangerous animals. Even apparently a pride of lions have a hard time taking this guy down. This is an eland, one of the bigger antelope in the area. These are the other kind of, I say zebras, so sometimes I'll go zebra, but these are what they call plains zebras. Then these are mummy and baby black rhinos. This is a bit of a panorama, so it's a little difficult to see. These little guys here are Thompson gazelles. And you can tell by the black stripe on their sides. And then these guys are eland. They are huge, huge creatures. And unexpectedly, I didn't realize, but they have domestic cattle in the area. These are almost like a longhorn, very long. I would imagine these are like 2 feet long, these horns, and very pointed. And they're just grazing. They do have them kind of fenced off a little bit, so they're not actually in with the wildlife. But yeah, there's some local, these are the only domesticated animals like they're in the area. This guy is called a Cory, and I'm going to be careful how I say the last word, bustard. Our tour manager, Ron, always thought that they were Cory right? You can imagine, replace the U with an A. He was quite embarrassed when our driver said, no, Ron, that's not their name. It's a bustard. So he kind of was feeling a little embarrassed. This is a rhino cemetery and memorial. Sudan had just passed away about a month and a half before we were there. And what was notable about Sudan, unfortunately, he's the last male northern white rhino. So they're going to have to sort of try some breeding programs with southern white rhinos, but pretty much because he was the last, the northern white rhino will be extinct. And then there's a couple more rhinos just grazing. And again, I wish I could remember, and I was going to look it up. There is a way of telling the gray from the black by their horns. Now, this was lucky for us. When we were coming back that day to the lodge, there was a pride of lions. So the top 2 pictures are the evening time, and they're heading out on a hunt. The next morning, as fluke would have it, we happened to take the right turn on whichever track we were following, and we came across the same pride with their kill. Apparently, it is quite unusual to find them with their kill because they usually either they're not as visible or the kill is usually hidden. So this was quite a fortuitous opportunity for us. And there was a whole pride. This is just a couple. This is the grand dam apparently of the group. And the younger ones make sure they take it to her so that she can feed. And on the other side of the track was some more of the pride. There was a bit more shelter on the other side. So they were enjoying some shade. We were lucky enough to go to a school in a town called Nanyuki. I'm sure I'm killing these pronunciations, but I'm sure they'll forgive me. And just, they're so happy, and they just loved having their picture taken. So it was nice. As a retired school teacher, it was nice to go to the school and have a chance to visit. It's on the same compound as a Weaver and Spinner Association group. The area around Nanyuki is one of the major wool producing areas in Kenya. This actually was a self-help women's project, was started with the main aim of training poor, widowed, and single women living in the surrounding villages in the crafts of spinning, knitting, and weaving. The main goal is to make these women self-reliant. In 1979, the Canadian Embassy funded the construction of a washing and dyeing room, and also a veranda used as a display shop for the finished products, which were just beautiful. Carpets, shawls, cardigans, throws, scarves, bed covers, and wall hangings. So you can see here in the background, they're showing us how they do their spinning. This lady's showing us one of their looms. And then the same lady is explaining to us how they get the different colors, and it's all natural from local plants that they boil and are able to dye their own wool. While we were also in the area, we went to the chimpanzee sanctuary. It's a 200-acre sanctuary, so this was kind of overlooking the sanctuary that has been set up at the Sweetwaters Game Reserve. The aim of the project that was initiated by the Kenya Wildlife Service and by the Jane Goodall Institute was to set up a colony where chimps could be introduced, rehabilitated, and taught to fend for themselves in an area similar to their natural living conditions. Unfortunately, due to severe mistreatment by human captors, and then they were rescued, some of these chimps can never be released. In fact, some of them can't be close to other chimps because they become very violent. So we're on to the next area. What surprised me about parts of Kenya, this is the Rift Valley, was how lush it was. So we're going to Lake Naivasha, which is sort of a little southwest of where we were. So little shots going along the road. Our bathroom breaks would be taken at these little, they call them curio shops. And this was, we were in the parking lot, and as we looked up, this was some passing traffic. They do have cars and motorbikes, but a lot of times you will see the carts with the animals pulling them. You'll even see them herding animals down the side of the streets or across the roads. And this is where we stopped for lunch. Again, this is another camp you can stay at, but this is the Sarova Lion Hill Lodge, and it was quite unique in how they had decorated it and how they'd set up their area for their lunch. We also made a stop to Thompson Falls. So this is kind of looking towards the falls. And then this picture, again, they have the Maasai, and they do welcomes. And this was the river. So the falls is to the right, the river runs in behind. And look at these beautiful townhomes. There was just some crazy things when you'd see, like this side of the river, you've got the Maasai, the waterfalls, the river, and then these beautiful modern townhomes on the other bank. We also had time to stop at a tea and coffee estate where this lady kindly explained the whole process from growing to production of their tea and coffee. Again, it just surprised me at how lush the area is. Then we arrived at the beautiful Lake Naivasha Sopa Resort. This is some pictures. Your accommodations are away from the main lodge in these fourplexes. And I was surprised that when he told us to bring swimsuits, I wasn't really thinking, well, what kind of swimming pool? But this place had two. This was the lounge area, and this is looking across a huge grassy area between the fourplexes and the lake. So this is a quick look at our room. We were just so spoiled, it was amazing. So I went outside. This is our room up here. Again, as soon as I opened that door, on the balcony, The vervet monkeys are there. I just managed to catch this one, but his little mates always follow along. This is taken from our balcony. This huge grass area goes between the fourplexes, and you can see the lake Naivasha in the background. And you're free to wander through here. There's no fencing, there's absolutely nothing. You just go out. And this is a water buck. There's some zebra out there. These were a couple from Alberta who were in our Jeep, and Tracy decided it would be a good idea to feed this one single monkey, as she thought, a banana. Well, that would have been all well and good, but it seems they have some kind of telegraphing going on, because as soon as someone starts getting fed, all of the other ones come running. So there was some starting to climb up here. There was more coming on the roof. They had to make a quick exit because there was way too many vervet monkeys. Vervet monkeys started to come on to their balcony. So again, this is us down on the grass area. You can see some horses this time, a little bit better zebra. I wasn't really sure, like they say, oh yeah, just go out there and walk around. I'm thinking, these are wild animals. I'm not really too sure that I want to do this, but nobody had a problem. This is a water buck. And then the guest of honor, mama giraffe and little baby giraffe, and there's a better picture coming up. This baby had been born the night before, so we were lucky enough to get to see. So this is a better view of mama and baby. And then we just managed to get lucky and get a colobus monkey who was eating up in one of the trees. Walking up from one of the fourplex we were in to the main lodge, we're just on a little dirt path going up, and I didn't even see him at first. But here's this beautiful, it's a Maasai giraffe. You can, and again, I'll compare them later with the markings. And he's just there feeding in the trees. I got up pretty darn close. I just wouldn't want to make sure that I didn't get too close for him to kick me or anything. He didn't bat an eyelid. He just kind of looked around and then went back to feeding. At this particular lodge, because you are in these fourplexes and there is that huge grassy area, before 6 o'clock, so daylight time, you can walk up to the lodge yourself. But after 6 o'clock, you have to call for an escort. So we called for the escort because we were going up for dinner. And the reason they have to do this is the hippos on the lake spend all day in the lake. They don't bother. But in the evening, they come up onto that grassy area to graze. And they are very unpredictable. So you can't go walking out there at night without an escort. So we're waiting for the escort. We're at the top of the steps and we thought, oh, you know what? We can just walk down to the bottom of the steps. Our escort's going to be here shortly. And we're close enough to the room. If anything untoward happened, we could make a quick exit. We're standing there. We hear literally like thundering of hooves. And we thought, okay, well, what is this? We went up the steps and we thought, well, let's just see what happens. And I kid you not, but 5 zebras came out of the bush. And they came and they were right at the bottom of the stairs. So my husband and I looked at each other and said, maybe we should go indoors just in case that zebras can come upstairs. You know, they didn't, of course, and I'm sure they can't, I don't know. But so we went inside and waited for the escort. The escort came up the stairs when he arrived and he knocked on the door and we're thinking, oh, it's an escort, you know, like, is he armed? Is for protection? Yeah, he was armed with a flashlight and a big stick. So that was quite interesting. We were expecting an armed guard, but no, they just use a big stick. Close to Lake Naivasha is Lake Nakuru. And so we went to the national park there. Again, you can see the poinsettias. This is the lake. The water levels were really quite high while we were there. And they took us up to the what they call Observation Hill. It was interesting to see they've got this signpost, you know, they have all the directions. This is going to Rio de Janeiro. This is Mexico. And in fact, Mexico from this point was over 14,000 kilometers away. So you kind of get an idea. This little guy is a rock hyrax. And he is, I want you to sort of guess, and maybe I'll tell you when we come back to question time, what his closest relative is. So keep in mind this little rock hyrax, and I will ask you and tell you, because I'd be surprised if anybody guessed what his closest relative is. So we're still up on Observation Hill. You can see the lake in the background. And these olive baboons decided they wanted to come and visit. This one, not so bad, wasn't that big, but this guy was huge. He just comes over and he plonks himself by the picnic table. In the next picture, we're heading back to the lodge. And as I told you, the water levels had been quite high. So this is the road. And this little guy here is a yellow-billed stork. But unfortunately, when we had driven in on the same road, there was not quite so much water. And so the potholes were really quite visible. And they should have stayed a little closer to the left. Unfortunately for this particular Jeep, the driver went a little too close to the right and just sank into the mud. It's hard to see here, but this Jeep was almost at 45-degree angle. So, of course, because you don't know what's going to come out of the bushes at any time, the drivers got out. They all have rifles in their vehicles, which they're not really going to use. They probably just fire a warning shot if anything came by. And then they had to cinch this guy up to a tow rope. And amazingly, the teamwork, they got this guy out in one go. They hooked him up, pulled him out, and we were back on our way to the lodge. Another area of Lake Naivasha, this is Lake Naivasha, is an area they call Crescent Island. Now, Crescent Island isn't really an island, it's a peninsula. But at some point, you couldn't get there to that area other than by boat. So hence the Crescent Island. But now they have put a road so you can actually drive to the island. And we had to drive up because the dock area where we would normally have taken a boat was underwater, so we couldn't go by boat. There's my husband here, and we're on the island, I call it Crescent Island. And you're literally there's no fences, there's absolutely nothing in this area. And you're just wandering through. So you'll see some giraffes and zebras. And then I've got more pictures of some other things. So you're literally just walking amongst these animals. And I guess they've seen enough humans, it doesn't really faze them because there was no problem with them coming towards us. I told you earlier that there's two types in Kenya of zebras. This is the Grevy's zebra, which we saw earlier, and the plain zebra, which we just saw on Crescent Island. You can see the markings on the Grevy's zebra. They're a lot thinner and straighter for the most part, and they have a white underbelly. And the plain zebra has thicker stripes, more white in between, and the stripes continue under their belly. Hard to tell from this picture, but the Grevy's zebras are the bigger of the two, but they are the more rare of the two, and they are only in certain areas, even within Kenya. One of this again is still on Crescent Island, and these are some wildebeest and some gazelles. This was a little scary, I thought, because these guys started to run. And you can see from this picture, so you can see the zebras in the background. This is Lake Naivasha. And these guys started to run. This guy's looking right at us. I'm not quite sure what he was thinking, but we were safe. It was fine. The wildebeest, you might have heard of the famous annual migration where millions of these creatures do a clockwise, always clockwise. They go around the Great Masai Mara and the Serengeti ecosystem. And the zebra are very smart. They travel with them. And when they come to a river, the zebra always makes sure they get in the middle of the pack because they want other animals in the river first, because if there's hippos or crocodiles, they're more likely to go for the first part of the group. And so the zebras protect themselves by staying in the middle of the pile. There's also some eland, the gazelles and impalas. They're seeking, when they go on their migration, they're seeking fresh grazing. And the movements depend, like the dates of the movements are not specific because it depends on the rain patterns. So the more rain, the more growth of for the grass for grazing. But the crossing of the Mara River is considered the climax of this migration period. So as I say, they can't tell you, September, whatever, you can see this. but they can usually kind of have a better judge once the rainy season and they know how the growth is going. And then that afternoon, after being on the island, we went on another ride through the area, and we came across this group of giraffes. These are Rothschild, sorry, I lost my place again. They used to be called Rothschild giraffes. They're now referred to as Nubian giraffes. And I was saying earlier, if you come across a group of giraffes, you can call them a herd, a tower, a kaleidoscope, or a journey. Any of those references to name the group is acceptable. So 3 types of giraffe. This first one is the Nubian, and their color does not go, it only goes about 1/3 down their legs, and then the lower part of all their legs are white. The middle one is what they call the Maasai giraffe. They tend to have a slightly kind of lightish colored brown background with darker brown markings. I didn't take this picture. I was trying to get something to compare it with. And apparently these are 2 males who are fighting. They wrap their necks around each other. So that was quite an interesting shot. And the third one is the reticulated giraffe. So you can see it's more white in between the sort of rusty, reddy brown markings. This is another impala, gray rhinoceros, some Cape buffalo, and this little guy here is a great egret. Luckily, the guy, we had our tour manager, Ron, in our Jeep, and he loves birds, and he kind of is quite well informed on them. So he was able to tell us quite a bit about some of the bird life that we saw. And then here's a group of vervet monkeys. We went out on Lake Naivasha. This was part of our group. I just took the picture and I wanted to show you the type of boats we were out on the lake. They sat kind of low in the water anyway, even without people in it. And they were a little tippy. So I was kind of, we're going to go and look for hippos in this, but it was fine once we got going on the lake. Again, the water levels were higher than expected. So some of these trees would not have even been anywhere near the water, the shore. This pair sitting here are white storks. And this pair here are great white pelicans. The bird life here is just amazing. I wish I could have got pictures of all of them and been able to identify all of them. I'm sure Ron has a whole collection of them. As I was saying, the lake level was really high. So this tree was about 2 feet, minimum 2 feet underwater. So you would have had this would have been what considered on shore. If you look closely, this little guy here, he has his beak pointing to the right. He's black and white, and he is called a pied kingfisher. So then we kind of drove around the sides and we found some of the birds and what have you. And then we went further up the lakeside and we came across hippos. I mean, they're in every direction. You are told to stay a minimum of, I think it was, I want to say 4 meters back from the hippos because they are unpredictable, especially when they've got young with them. They do tend to be very protective, and they are probably, I think they're considered, maybe with the Cape buffalo, the most dangerous animal in Africa because they open their mouths and they can cut a boat in half. This was coming back, and it's beautiful. There was several of them, these beautiful homes on the lakeside. And I kind of looked, I thought that could be anywhere in BC on a lake or anything. This home is just so beautiful. You can see the water level. Like this would usually be, they have a dock, I think, in here. And so this water level would be way back. And then this is our dock that we headed back to, but it was starting to get underwater. So I was a little concerned about us getting out of the boats, thinking, oh, I don't want to take a tip in this lake, especially when the hippos were just off to the right of us here. But no, we all made it out. Nobody fell in the lake, so that was good. Then we're on to our next stage of the journey. We left Lake Naivasha, and this is another place. This is the Mara Serena Safari lot. No, pardon me, that's where we stayed. The Saroba Mara camp. And you will notice similarities to the other one I showed you because they're owned by the same company. But what intrigued me was some of the artwork that they had on display at this place. It was quite unique. And again, the food selection was unbelievable. It was really good. So we finally arrived at the Masai Mara National Reserve and our home for the next 3 nights, the Mara Serena Safari Lodge. This was just an incredible place with the views over the Masai Mara towards, I believe it's the Serengeti because the border with Tanzania. It was, and you can see here that even this place is at over 5,300 feet above sea level. So we didn't drop below, well, I think, except for when we were at the airport, but even Nairobi is like 5,200 feet above sea level in the capital city. This is the lodge entrance. And I was stunned. I think my jaw must have hit the ground. And this is going into the main lobby, and this is overlooking the Masai Mara. This is the reception desk, and then you can see these little domes above the lobby area, and they're just beautifully decorated. I guess it's kind of, they painted it, and they've got stones kind of inserted in different designs. It was just awesome to look at some of these decorations that they had. And then we go to our room. This is the walkway to our room. We called it the Flintstone Village. Each of these little things is a separate room, and they look like they're made out of mud. I don't think they were, but maybe they were. But quite an interesting lodge. And of course, you can see the bright colored painting around the windows. So this was our room. This is what it looked like before we unpacked. Again, they've got these little French balconies, so you don't actually step out. You open the door, but there's nothing to step out onto, and it overlooks the Masai Mara. This was our room at night, where they did recommend that you use a netting. But in all honesty, the whole time we were there, like 14 days, I guess, total, in Kenya, 15 days, we did not see a bug, not a bug. But they did suggest. So I guess depending on, the weather, if there's a bit more rain or whatever. And we didn't see a single snake for those who are interested, not a one. So this is from the little French balcony. This is up to the main lodge area, and this is the Masai Mara. Then this is from our room right here. There is a giraffe, believe it or not, but there's a giraffe standing right there. So beautiful views across the Masai Mara. Then we went up to the main lodge and we stood on the patio up there, and this is our room here. And this little warthog just came out of the bush, and he's just grazing right there. And then they did have a swimming pool here, and we're by the pool deck, and then it's just about sunsetting on our first night, and this is looking up at the main lounge area. And this is the lounge itself. And this is the next day. This little guy here is called a steenbok. And when I took the picture, I've jokingly been saying, oh, look, they're going to the spa or the gymnasium. I wonder which one they picked to go to. And then just looking to the right, when I took this picture, there's this little group of warthogs grazing. The same group of warthogs then thought, oh, it'll be a good idea to go across the terrace by the swimming pool. And these are some of the people that were in our group. So they just kind of trotted through there. So we're over there, we look down at the pool, and here is another hyrax. This time it's a tree hyrax. They have 3 different kinds, a tree hyrax, rock hyrax, and mountain hyrax. Again, try and think who you think this is related to, and I'll let you know at the end. And then we sat and enjoyed a cold Tusker beer overlooking the pool and the Masai Mara. Funny story why there's an elephant on this. The founder of the company, which is African, uses 100% African ingredients, including barley from the Masai Mara. He was killed on an elephant hunting trip. And so his brother thought in his memory that he should name the beer Tusker and put an elephant on the label in memory of his brother who was killed when he went hunting elephants. So there's a little bit of irony in that, but. So then we headed to the Mara River. It was early in the morning and we were greeted there, and there was a ranger with a rifle and of course the Maasai, this is my husband, and we didn't really know what was going on, but we thought we were just going out for a regular game drive. And then we noticed these tables set up, and in the trees to the right was a buffet, including like barbecue, so there was hot and cold food. And we're like, well, what's going on? This is the Mara River. And we're having breakfast watching the hippos. So unfortunately, this picture, we were on this side of the river and the hippos were choosing to be on the other side of the river at this point. I didn't get him in my picture, but just off to the right, there was a huge crocodile just sunning himself on the bank. I looked to the left and there's a mama and her baby hippo. We then were lucky enough, we went a little bit further up the left bank and there was a group of hippos closer to our side of the river that were in there. But that was a really nice surprise. We didn't know anything about that. I've been talking about the antelope and gazelles. And just so that you know, the difference between an antelope and a gazelle is that a gazelle is an antelope, but not all antelopes are gazelles. So a gazelle is a group that belongs to the antelope group. And together with the gazelles and the main antelope group, they make up quite a miscellaneous group, which includes impalas, gazelles, oryx, waterbuck, eland, wildebeest, and many more. All antelopes are even-toed hooves. Gazelles, like other antelopes, also have a 4-chambered stomach, but the main difference is in their size and horns. Gazelles are usually much smaller than most of the other antelopes. And here's an example. A little Thompson gazelle that I showed you earlier might weigh about 30 kilos, whereas the elands that you saw could weigh in excess of 950 kilos. Secondly, in most species of gazelles, both the male and the female animals have horns. So a Thompson gazelle would have male, female, both have horns. But in the case of something like impalas, only the males have horns, so they are considered antelope, not gazelles. There's another main difference between the two, is that only the gazelles tend to display behavior known as stotting. So have you ever seen any wildlife shows? When alerted by a predator, the gazelles move slowly before they leap vertically into the air. And then upon landing, it's like they've opened up the throttle and they can easily escape any or most of their predators. So we're off into the Mara. This guy is called a topi. This is two, luckily I got two here, but this was a closer one. I was able to zoom in. This gray part in the sunlight shines silver. They're quite magnificent to see, or when the sun is shining on them. This is a closer look at a yellow-billed stork, and we came across these gray-crowned crane. This is Dad, Mom, and the little baby chick. And they just herded this chick the whole time. Like, they were really cute with their little baby. Carrying on the Masa, we came across a National Geographic filming team who said they'd been there for hours. This hill, which looked really far away, but wasn't as far as it looks, they had spotted a female leopard and with her cubs. So we were able to look closer with our binoculars, but we didn't actually see them. These guys have got incredible zooms on their camera, and apparently they just sit there and they wait, and they were hoping to catch some footage of the mom and her babies. These guys are some more eland, and on their backs are two of their most favorite people. They're common waxbills, and it's quite the relationship. These guys graze around, and the waxbills take care of any little ticks or other insects that might land on them. Now, we came across another company whose Jeep had got stuck in the mud. At first, we didn't see what was behind them until they asked us to reposition our Jeeps. There was actually 3 fully grown male lions with their kill, which was a Cape buffalo, which is very hard for them to kill, but they figured he had got stuck in the mud, somewhat like this Jeep. So we had to position our Jeeps to cut off the sight lines of the 3 male lions so that the drivers could get out and winch up the stuck Jeep and get them out of there. So that was quite an interesting find. But to come across another, like 3 fully grown males with a kill was quite the thing. I just love, it's the same elephant, but I just love this guy. We're just driving along, and then you can hear the trees shuffling, and he starts to emerge from the bushes. And here he is. And again, if you look, his right trunk is a little bit bigger than his left trunk. Hard to get it because of the angle. But again, I told you they can be right-handed or left-handed. And something I learned was that when elephants are relaxed and they're resting, they sometimes cross their back legs, which usually is a sign that they're very relaxed. Partway, when you're in the Masai Mara, it does border onto Tanzania. And on the other side, there's a little bit more of the Masai Mara, and then it's the Serengeti. So they have, this is their border marker. International boundary, no entry into Tanzania. Please note that it is illegal to enter the Serengeti without authority. I got a little nervous because as we're there, this is a park ranger from Tanzania. But he was okay. He kind of waved and smiled at us because we did cross into Tanzania. These are the drivers. These 3 drivers, that's our driver Sam, are actually standing in Kenya. This driver has got 1 leg in Kenya and 1 leg in Tanzania. Our tour manager, Ron, he's completely in Tanzania, and this other driver is also in Tanzania. So we did take a picture. More lions. We came across this guy. He did have some lionesses with him. They were a little harder to spot because of their color, and they were on the prowl because there was a Cape buffalo just off the picture, and I think they were thinking that he would make a great dinner, so they were off trying to hunt. And then these are some more impalas. As we're driving along, we had to stop. This is the tail end of a huge group. It wasn't the migration group, but in here you can see, I think that these might be impalas. This guy here for sure is a wildebeest, and these apparently are hartebeests. And again, it could have been part of the migration, but they kind of figured it was maybe just a little too early. But there was a huge group that we had to wait for them to go by. And then, as luck would have it, we came across 3 more. This was our lucky day. The drivers couldn't believe it. We came across 3 more fully grown males. And I jokingly, this guy starts to walk towards our Jeep. And I jokingly, in a very little whisper, was going, "Here, kitty, kitty, here, kitty, kitty." And this guy never stopped. He just kept coming and coming and coming towards our Jeep. And we were close that I could have put my arm out and actually touched him. I didn't, I wasn't taking any chances. As it turns out, there's a small little water hole here. And I guess this guy was thirsty and he wanted to have something to drink. These are Grant's gazelles. So again, the gazelles, male and female, will have horns, and a spotted hyena. There was probably 2 or 3 others with him. But I managed to get a really good shot of this guy by himself. This is some more impalas, but if you look closely, this front one, you can see the 2 horns on the back one. This front one only has 1 horn. Not sure what happened. He could have been in a fight, or he could have got entangled in something and it snapped off. Not sure, but yeah, just one horn. And this beautiful creature is an oryx. Just stunning. And then again, two pictures of my favorite animals, two different elephant herds that we came across. And again, I told you it was our lucky day. This time we came across two juvenile lions. They were really having a hard time. They were malnourished. You can tell, the driver was telling us they're definitely malnourished. And if you look at the side, there was lots of scrapes. What he figures was they weren't very good hunters, so they weren't able to kill their prey, and their prey was probably injuring them quite a lot. And this guy had another injury on his other side of his rump that looked really bad. So the driver wasn't sure that these two were even going to survive. So we stopped, and they decided, oh, well, we'll just stop and we'll sit in the middle of the road and make you wait. So you can see how close our Jeeps were to these guys. Then this guy here decides, oh, I'm going to get up and I'll walk in between some Jeeps, because this Jeep came from the other direction. And he goes in between the Jeeps. And I got one of my favorite pictures. I can't believe I took this picture. This giraffe elephant, this lion found a mound, and he actually stood on the mound. And I swear I could hear the music from the Lion King. You know how you hear that song when they present the little cub to the group? It was just an amazing, amazing moment to see this lion. And you could go on balloon rides across the Masai Mara and a couple other reserves. I don't like heights, so we didn't bother, but we managed to see some pictures of other people in the hot air balloons. And then this was sunset over the Mara. The next day we went to a Maasai village. This is one of the chief's sons. They come in a line and then they kind of form a half circle and they do a greeting. The village was called Enkesha village, and our tour guide has been here before, so he knows some of these guys here. And they give a display of their jumping, which is called adumu. And it's a way for young Maasai men to demonstrate their strength and possibly attract a bride. Then the women were out, and just beautiful colors in their outfits. And they do all of this beadwork themselves, and they came and sang to us. They then demonstrated how traditionally they would have started fire. So they have a stick and a piece of wood, and they rub it together until they get flame. The guy gave us the stick and the piece of wood, so we brought that home with us. This is one of their mud homes. The women build the houses, not the men. The men look after the cattle, and they're the protectors, but the women will build the homes. This is one of the chief's sons that we saw earlier. This was his home. He did take us inside, but it was really quite dark, and I did take a couple of shots, but unfortunately they didn't turn out. This colorful stick he has in his hand is called a talking stick. And again, he gave that to us as a little parting gift. And his mom actually gave me a bracelet that she had made. Our tour manager, Ron, had asked us to bring donations of school supplies for the village kids. And so we started to stack them up on one of the blankets. You can see this is a bigger talking stick, but kind of you get the idea. It's hanging on the wall in our den. So we come to we went out this day. It was our last day, and partway around the drive, Ron, our tour manager, said, I'm not feeling good. Can you guys change Jeeps and I'll get Sam to drive me back to the lodge? Which Sam obliged. I was a little nervous about getting out of a Jeep in the middle of nowhere, but they watch with their rifles and everything. So we switched Jeeps, but it was all a ruse because Ron and Sam had gone back to set up what they call a sundowner. So driving back to the lodge, we took a slightly different route, and we go up on the top of this hill, and they've set up appetizers and drinks. And of course, we had a nice little fire going. And the Jeeps sort of formed a semicircle. And then this is Ron, our tour manager, and the drivers. And he gives a little speech and, you know, how glad he's been to sort of been escorting us and what have you. And then we all stood together and watched the sunset over the Masamara. So the next day, we could have taken, I think it was between 5 and 7 hour drive in the Jeeps back to Nairobi, mostly on paved roads because they weren't going anywhere we hadn't already been. But some of us signed up for the flight. And then I realized, oh, what kind of plane is it going to be and how are we going to take off? Because I mean, I've been on a small plane, but I've never taken off on a dirt landing strip. So that was quite interesting. As luck would have it, my seat, I just sat where they told me to sit. And as we were taking off, I realized I was looking down on the lodge that we had just stayed at. So I was lucky enough to get this shot from the air as we were flying back to Nairobi. So Kwaheri, which is goodbye in Swahili from Kenya. I got this shot as the sun was setting and you can see the giraffe in profile. So I thought it was kind of a fitting end to our journey. And that's it.
Well, thank you very much. That was great.
A little longer than I thought, but sometimes you just...
Yeah.
Okay, so who wants to guess as the closest relative to that little Hyrax guy? John, you'll have to take yourself off mute. And Suzanne, can you unmute them? Okay.
I reckon it's a rat.
Good guess because of what it looks like. Suzanne, do you have a guess? Oh, she's not, she's on mute still. She can probably hear me. John, you're not even close. The closest.
There we go.
Oh, Suzanne, did you have a, sorry, it's.
Wombat.
A wombat. Good guesses, because when you look at the animal, you think of its size and what it looks like. Not even close. The closest relative to a hyrax, wait for it, is the elephant. And the reason being is you couldn't see the teeth on the hyrax, but their teeth are hollow like tusks.
Oh.
And so they say that it is close, the closest relative is an elephant. And I was going to tell you that when we went to the chimp sanctuary, they have this whole area set up where you can read some information, and that chimpanzees are a 98.6% genetic match to humans.
I knew that.
You knew that? I mean, I knew that we were related. I don't think I was expecting it to be 98. Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Your chimpanzee side is coming out there, John.
Yep, yeah.
Oh, I don't know if anybody had any questions. I realize that we're over time, but.
And sorry, the two friends, Barb and Shirley, had said that at the beginning, they would only be able to stay for so long. So I said, well, you can always just duck up when you need to, which is what they did, right?
Yes. Yeah. And if you've recorded it, they can always go back and.
Exactly. And just, you know, Shirley has always wanted to do a safari. So that's why Barb invited her to participate today.
And, you know, I'd always wanted to go on safari. I wasn't sure I wanted to organize something myself. So Ron Boisman it's called Travels with Ron. He does a lot of different trips every year. So he does Kenya. He does one that's Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Egypt, places in South America. He's doing a Greek island tour. He organizes everything. So from the minute you get on the plane here to when you get off, wherever your destination is, you are met. He books all the hotels. He books all of the trips, sightseeing, whatever it is. We didn't have to do a thing.
Oh, wow.
Just show up. And he's been doing it for over 30 years. And some of these places like Sam, our driver that we had in Kenya, he's used him for 25 years. And we were lucky enough that our particular Jeep was the newest one in their fleet. So we had a really nice cooler. They all took portable coolers, but we had came with the Jeep cooler, and they'd have water all the time for us and snacks and stuff. And and very knowledgeable. Most of the guys, I think Sam was the longest at 25, but the other guys were at least 10 years experience with the company.
Yeah.
So very, very good.
How long was your flight?
Oh, you know what? I can't even remember. It wasn't well, we flew from here to Calgary. We were supposed to fly Vancouver, Amsterdam, Nairobi.
Oh, okay.
But the airline company decided they had to switch the timing up on the connecting flight out of Amsterdam. So the flight leaving Vancouver would miss the Amsterdam-Nairobi flight. So we had to do Vancouver, Calgary, Amsterdam, Kenya to Nairobi. So the last part, I think, I want to say it was about 8 hours from Amsterdam to Nairobi.
Right. Yeah.
So an hour flight to Calgary, a little bit of a layover, and then probably to Amsterdam, it's about 9 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
In total. So we did that all in kind of one day. We just had small layovers. If I was to do it again, I think I would plan on staying in Amsterdam for a couple of nights.
Best place in the world.
I've never stayed. I've been in Amsterdam in the airport, but that's what we should have done. That's what I would recommend for anybody doing that. If like we went KLM, I guess, because it was Amsterdam.
Right.
If you go like Lufthansa, you'd go to Frankfurt, but we should have stayed in Amsterdam. That would have been a smart move. And then we would have had a chance to spend a few days in Amsterdam, sort of get used to the time zone. Although I have to say, we just hit the ground running when we got to Nairobi, and the transit was not a problem. We had no adverse effects. Now, when we came home, it affected us coming home. Yeah. But not as bad as we went with Ron on a trip to Vietnam and Cambodia. So the time difference there is huge.
Yeah, yeah.
Here. We came home, it took us 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
To recover. They say 1 day per hour of time difference.
Really? Yeah.
That's what pilots will tell you.
Yeah.
It's roughly the kind of recovery period. Yeah. I don't know how pilots do it, because sometimes they just have an 8-hour layover and then they're flying back. But maybe because they're back and forwards, their body adjusts.
I think so.
But no, luckily for us, we didn't have the jet lag. So maybe it would have been better to do it on the way back, because on the way back, the flight went Nairobi, Amsterdam, Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed, there was actually a 9-hour layover in Amsterdam, and we stayed at there's a little hotel right in the terminal at Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah.
And we just booked it for 7 hours, and it was great because we were able to shower and change and stuff.
Yeah, we've stayed there. There's a hotel just outside of the airport, and the bus picks you up and takes you to this hotel. Yeah. And it's got little tiny windows. We always call it the gulag.
Oh, yeah. Well, this
stayed there a couple.
It's like little sort of pods. I mean, we're cool for a bed, but the bed looks like a sofa. And then you press these buttons and it comes out. It's a queen size bed.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then full bathroom. So it was really good. But you're literally in the departures area of Amsterdam Airport. When you come out of the door, you're literally there at the departure level.
Yeah.
There's a McDonald's there. And the McDonald's was all computerized. You couldn't go up and ask someone at the counter. You had to go to a machine, place your order through the machine, and then they'd call your number and you go pick it up. Strangest thing, but no, I have to say we had a fabulous time. It was one thing on my bucket list that I got to do.
Yeah, lovely.
I was happy, and the fact we didn't see any snakes or any bugs of any kind was a bonus, because we came back. The first thing people were asking, what were the bugs like? What were the snakes? Weren't you scared of the snakes? I said, I didn't see a snake to be scared of. Mm-hmm. Not a single one. I've seen more snakes in a zoo than I did on that trip. So anyway.
Very good.
What made you choose Kenya over another?
Because Ron, who we had traveled with the year before, we did a Danube River cruise with Ron. And another friend of ours has traveled with him before on various trips. And actually this one girl who I'm in sorority with, Andrea, she said, you've done a trip with Ron on the Danube. She said, I did his safari in Kenya. And that's really why we did it.
Yeah. And, word of mouth referral, right?
Oh, I tell you, she did exactly the same trip. And what was sad was we were in Kenya for about 4 days, and I got an email to say this lady had passed away.
Oh, wow.
Very unexpectedly. And it was kind of bittersweet that we were following the trail that she had followed.
Yeah.
And I talked to her the night before we left. And she was saying, oh, you're going to love this and you're going to love that. And she was so excited. She's like, I can't wait for you to come back and show me your pictures. So as I say, it was bittersweet, but it was almost like it was meant to be, that I was supposed to be there in Africa.
Right, yeah.
The place that she'd been to. And then we went the following year, no, 2018. We also have done the cruise on the Mekong, a river cruise to Vietnam and Cambodia with him.
Right, yeah.
And he is so organized. It just is so smooth. He's very good at checking people if you have allergies or anything like that. So another one he does is partially in Kenya, but there's a lot more in Tanzania. And then you can add on a trip to Rwanda to go see the gorillas.
Oh, right.
The big silverbacks. So I'm kind of thinking, oh, but you know, there's other places we haven't been yet. So we're kind of on the fence, because next year we're doing a Baltic cruise. So.
Oh, I did that.
Yeah, apparently when I was reading the top 10 cruises that they think you should take. And I'm going, oh, done that one. Oh, done that one. Oh, gonna do that one. So it was quite interesting because my family heritage is quite a lot from the Baltic places. I know I was born and raised in England, but I have Finnish and Norwegian backgrounds. So, you know, home of my ancestors, the Vikings. And my son-in-law and daughter are coming with us, and his parents. And his mom was actually born in Estonia, and that's Tallinn, Estonia is one of our ports of call.
Oh, I had a Talon shirt on yesterday. I should have worn it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I'll have to tell Leah. This is my son-in-law's mother, and so she's excited to go and be with us when we get to Tallinn. She left there. They had to leave during the war very, very quickly. And they were able to they were in the bottom of a boat, literally, that took them to Sweden.
Mm.
And they got to Sweden and they stopped there, and then they were able to get passage eventually. She lived there till probably for about 10 years, I think, in Sweden. And then they decided to come to Canada. Mm-hmm. So she started off in, you know, has quite a lot of people do in the Toronto area. And then they moved to the West Coast. But she loves the fact that my daughter is pretty good at languages. And so she's picked up some Estonian words. And my daughter has a 1.5-year-old now. And so she tries to use some Estonian words with her little guy. So grandma is quite impressed. Her son, not so much. He doesn't even bother with any of the Estonian, but her daughter-in-law, our daughter, does. So.
Oh, good.
Anyway, so
lovely.
is one of the things I picked up.
Yeah.
It's got all the Maasai and the Maasai village and stuff. And I got a beautiful oil painting as well from there of a Maasai village. I just love everything African, because even before we went to Africa, I have a bit of an African theme in our living room.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, so it was stuff that I hadn't been in Africa to buy, but I did bring more stuff back to add to my collection. And I don't know, I'm just so intrigued by the whole thing and the beauty. And I think it's the colors as well that are involved. It's so vibrant.
Yeah.
So no, it was just the best experience. I'd go back in a heartbeat for sure. No fears at all. So yeah, what's your next trip, John? Have you got anything planned?
Yeah, well, I got to start again now, because we were planning something in 2019, which was all kibosh. So we were going to do a rail trip around Europe. We were going to go to Amsterdam and then to Vienna, and Vienna to Prague, and Prague to Budapest, and then back to Vienna, into Germany, and back home. Yeah.
Have you ever done the Paradors in Spain?
No.
Oh, the Paradors, there's 94, 96 of them throughout Spain, but they're in outer areas. They're not in the big cities.
Right.
And the government decided it would be a good plan if they converted some of the castles, manor houses, some are convents, and they're older buildings for the most part that they've converted into hotels.
All right.
if you go on Paradors of Spain, they have, as I say, 90 plus of these, and you can pick your own ones that you want to visit, or you can follow, they have some that are grouped together, so you can follow the routes. And in 2015, we were gone for 10 weeks. So we did 4.5 weeks through Spain driving, going to Paradors, and amazing. You're not in the large cities, but, and the reason it's to attract some of the tourists, and beautiful. The history of the places. I mean, we got to stay in castles and manor houses and converted convents and monasteries. And then we flew to Prague, spent time in Prague, and we were in Austria for a little bit. And that's when we joined the river cruise in Bratislava and went east on the Danube.
Right. Yeah.
Beautiful trip. But yeah, I'd like to do some more areas in Europe. We had planned to go last year. Well, no, this year. Yeah, we were supposed to go in January, fly to New Zealand, because my husband lived there for a while, spend a month or so in New Zealand, and then we had booked a cruise out of Sydney, 19 nights through the South Pacific Islands.
Oh, wow.
And I was so excited. I've always wanted to go to the South Pacific, and then this ugly COVID reared its head. And that was it. So maybe not next year, 2023. Touch wood, God spares us. We'll
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, Carmen, I'm gonna have to fly, and if there's no more questions, but thank you for inviting me. It was actually so nice to at first I was a little nervous. I said, oh, why did I say I would do this? But it was so nice to go back through the pictures, and now I have it on a flash drive.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more organized. I actually wrote out a script so I can kind of remember. And a couple of the animals I couldn't remember, but luckily I picked up some guides to animals and birds from Kenya. So I was able to go back, and hopefully I did an okay job identifying.
You did great.
Great job. Yeah, yeah.
I love the stuff on the border, like that whole with the toothpick thing either way. I've always thought that was folklore, so I love that. I love the fact that you talked about the place where Queen Elizabeth became queen. That whole, my mom always talked about that. Went up a princess, came down a queen concept, right? So,
and we were right there in the whole, like the Mount Kenya Lodge, and as I say, the Treetops is one of the lodges on the property. So we weren't actually in Treetops Lodge, but yeah, it was very interesting, some of the stuff that we learned. And adopting, like our elephant, we keep adopting every year. They send us a reminder, and every month they send an update to let us know. So she's actually left what they call the nursery in Nairobi, and she's gone to the assimilation facility. And what they do is they have certain older elephants that they assimilate them with, because quite often when a new elephant joins a group, they can be kind of, what's the word, ignored and not accepted. So they're doing it in such a way that the elephant can get back to the wildlife and be accepted in a group. Because of course, when they took her, they found her injured, her family had moved on, right? So they were never able to put her back with her family. But yeah, that was a lucky elephant. And they send us every month. One of the daughters of the guy that started it is a beautiful artist, and she does watercolors of the elephants. And every month, if you've adopted an elephant, they send you a watercolor of not necessarily your adopted elephant, but of an elephant or elephants, depending. And it's just been so nice to keep that in touch. And we could have adopted a chimpanzee. We didn't do that, but some in our group adopted a chimpanzee. So it's a kind of a similar thing. That was probably one of the saddest parts of the trip, was the chimpanzee sanctuary. Because in their display areas, they tell you, like, they've got all of the chimpanzees named. They have pictures of them all. And just because of some, like the harsh treatment, literally some of them were kept in cages they couldn't stand up in. And they can't be released.
No.
Or live with other chimps because of the treatment. They're just so violent. And then some of them, when you watch them, I'm sure it's like human mental health, right? Because they're so closely related to us. And you see things that you think that almost could be a human sitting there, just the way that, they're sitting by themselves, their body language.
Yeah.
But it's sad, but in a way it was nice that the Conservancy is able to give them that area, 200 acres, and they make sure they're fed and they have the vets and everything checking them out. But no, it was just a beautiful trip, and one I will remember for a lifetime, that's for sure. Okay.
No, I don't need to go.
No. And it was so hard trying to pick pictures because
I know.
I've got thousands, and some of them some of them I couldn't even find, and I'm thinking I'm missing some pictures because I kept remembering a certain picture, and I did find them. It was on a little micro disc.
Yeah.
Micro card, and I don't know. I remember thinking I think I put them on a micro card off my tablet, but I couldn't remember. And I found it, and then I thought, oh gosh, Collette, don't even look, because you know what? You've got all these pictures. If I start looking through there's hundreds and hundreds more. It would have just made it worse.
Yeah.
So as I say, I wasn't really anticipating 102 slides, but that's how much it ended up being. But I think timing-wise was a little longer than I'd anticipated, but I think it went okay.
I think it went really well. Yeah, good. Yeah. I got to follow that now.
Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm doing the Venice.
Oh, you are, because that was supposed to be last month.
Yeah, but we only had 2 people, and I said, it's a lot of work to do for 2 people. So.
Yeah, I didn't even know how many people had signed up, but I just thought, you know what, doesn't matter, because I get to do this and live it all over again, and brought back some good memories. But
I'm going to do mine again in September anyway.
Oh, so. Good. I'll make sure I watch, because I love Venice. Oh my gosh, one of my favorite places.
Yeah. So.
And we were there, and it wasn't smelly. We were just there it was 10 years ago or so, but it was, people say, oh, it's so smelly.
Oh, I didn't say it's smelly.
No, it wasn't smelly when we were there, and we just loved it. So I'll look forward to that in September.
All righty.
I will definitely sign up.
Okay.
Lovely to see you all. Take care. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care. Say hi.